Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and iOS 16.4 Beta 2 has been out for a few days. Developers and public beta testers have been using it. I've been using it full-time on my iPhone 14 Pro Max. But there's even more to talk about as far as new features, changes, and updates since the initial iOS 16.4 Beta 2 is out. What's new video? So there's been new things that have been discovered since. We'll talk about that. I wanted to talk about the overall experience, not only on my phone, but your phones, based off the YouTube community poll that I ran late last night, and then we'll also talk about some important Apple news as well. Now, the first thing is new features. Now, in the initial What's New video, I mentioned that we have the new book turn animation. So you can see we have slide, curl, and none if you go into your theme settings, and currently it's enabled. So we have that nice page turn that's been brought back. You can move it around, and it's a little easier to see when we're in light mode here, but you can see you can turn the page just like you would expect, and it's great that they've brought this back. There's also another setting for this in your settings under the app. So if we go into the Settings app and then we go to Books, scroll down, you'll see here we have page turn animation. So you can actually change it in two different locations: slide, curl, and none. So for whatever reason, it's in two different locations. That's un-Apple-like, but it's there and in the app as well. Now, also, they've brought back something that was a little bit buggy before. We have the developer menu. It's easily showing up now again. Before, it wasn't really showing with Beta 1 properly, and now we have that developer menu back in your settings app. So it's great to see that. It's here if you need it. Now, if you have Beats Fit and you have the new Volt color, they've added that animation with the correct color now. This is actually within the code, but if you have these headphones, it should pop up for you. And my friend Steve Mosier found this. So you can see the new Beats Volt color animation is now present. They've also updated settings, and then Safari. Under Safari, scroll down to Advanced, and under Advanced, go to Experimental Features. The defaults have changed, so if you scroll all the way to the bottom of those features, you can reset all to defaults. If we scroll back up, there's a slight change here as well. There may be some added changes here also, but if we go into that on 16.3.1, so we'll just find Safari here, go to the same thing, and go to Advanced, Experimental Features. Let me turn on dark mode. There we go. And you can see the defaults are a little bit different as far as where the switches are. There's more disabled on Beta 2, it seems. So they've just changed it depending on which one you're talking about. They've rearranged some things, changed the defaults, and I've reset them on both devices. So that's a small update, but something worth mentioning. Now, also, if we go into our settings and then go to the top, go to our name at the top, and then tap on iCloud. And within iCloud settings, if we scroll down to advanced data protection, you'll see it's a bit laggy there. And for some reason, every single time on this page, it's laggy. If I scroll down again, it's laggy. I'm not sure why, but if we go into advanced data protection, you'll see here that we have this option. We've had it for a little while in the United States, and it's rolling out around the world. With Beta 2, they've added even more. And I've had many of you let me know that it's available in more countries. So far, we know it's available in Yemen, South Africa, Belgium, Germany, Norway, Denmark, and some others. So more and more people are seeing this roll out, and that's great. We can have advanced data protection enabled. Also, something else worth mentioning is within this menu here, there's some updated icons that hint at maybe iOS 17 getting a refresh of icons. They've made them very similar to what we have, at least on a couple of them, to what we have with macOS. So Messages backup in particular looks more and more like what we have on the Mac. The same is true with voice memos. That's not updated, and it's flat in 16.3.1, as you can see here. So they've updated the icon. Hopefully that hints at some changes with iOS 17 where things are more consistent across different OSs. Now, there's some new splash screens as well I wanted to mention. So if we go over to Stocks, Stocks has an all-new splash screen that gives us market data information, business news, and then it says use iCloud to view stocks and news on all your devices. Also, there's a new splash screen in Podcasts. So if we go into Podcasts, wait for it to open here, you'll see there's a new one that says Channels and Library, Improved Up Next, CarPlay updates. And these are the new updates launching with iOS 16.4. So that's something you'll see as well. Now, also, there's some new changes with Safari, or really home links, and how it's handled. So you'll see here, if I have a link to a different website, Mac Rumors in this case, but we have Firefox and Chrome, if we have a different default web browser, it will now open in whatever's set to default. So before it would only open in Safari no matter what. Now if you have a different web browser set, if we go to Mac Rumors, it will open in Safari here. But if we go back to our settings and we change that, and maybe we go into Firefox, go into default browser app, change it to Firefox, then we go back into that Mac Rumors link, it will now open in Firefox. So that's something that they've changed with Beta 2 that's updated for everyone. So if you have Chrome or Firefox set as default, the links now open properly in the proper app that you've chosen. Now, if we go into Apple Wallet and then we go to pay our Apple Card and we choose whatever payment we're making and then we pay it, there's a new animation or screen that pops up after you've made that payment. And it looks like this. Thanks to Noah for sending this in, but you'll see it says you paid, gives the amount, and it just has a little bit of a blue circle with a gradient and a check mark in the middle. So it just looks a little different. It's an update that they've made. Now, also, if you're using T-Mobile, they've made some updates to cellular for 5G. So if we go into settings, we'll go back here, go to the top, go into cellular. If you're on T-Mobile, you have 5G standalone. I've mentioned this before. It's available in other countries as well, it seems. But now T-Mobile is also allowing the enabling of the SA support, which allows for 3.3 gigabit per second network speeds. Now, this is available wherever those speeds are available, and if you have the proper cell phone towers to enable that, but that's added with Beta 2. So you can get up to 3.3 gigabits per second as far as that goes. Now, if we go into a FaceTime call, there's a change as well. This could be a bug though. So let's go into FaceTime, and within FaceTime, you'll see the icons at the top for video effects, portrait, and mic mode standard right here at the top. The icons have been removed. I think this is more of a bug. As you can see on 16.3.1, the icons are there, but it's something that's been updated. I definitely think it's more of a bug though than anything else. Also, I wanted to mention on watchOS 9.4, there's an update for Apple Watch Series 6 to recalibrate the battery capacity. On your Apple Watch, if you go into settings, let me go down to settings, we'll go over to battery. Go down to battery here. Under battery, it will give us our battery health. Under battery health, it may be incorrect depending on your device. This is currently at 100%, but if you have a Series 6, watchOS 9.4 should help recalibrate that to give you more accurate readings on the 44 millimeter. So that's something that's with that beta that I thought was worth mentioning. Now, there's some updates as well. One new thing that's rolling out to everyone right now is if you use Apple Maps, we'll go into Maps, and within Apple Maps, they've updated the newer maps in a few more countries, Sweden, Norway, and Finland. So maybe if we zoom into Oslo here, you may see these updated now with much more detail. So depending on where you are, it should give 3D maps and different details, driving, satellite, and more. You can explore, and it should give you a lot more information. So that's something with flyover as well. You can see and look around and everything else. So those have been updated in those countries. Let me know if they're updated for you. Also, one thing I wanted to mention is where I live, we have 2 Apple stores. In fact, my favorite Apple store, just because it wasn't that busy, was Apple Northlake. And unfortunately, this week it's been shut down permanently, and they're going to relocate it to a different place due to some crime in the area. So you'll see if I search for Apple stores near me, we have Apple South Park, which has been around as well. But the next closest one is Friendly Center and Haywood Mall. So those are not near me. They're a little ways away, 97 miles and 74 miles. Apple South Park isn't as far, but we used to have 2 options. Now we only have 1. Hopefully before the iPhone 15 launch, they'll bring in another one, as the area can get quite busy. But either way, I'm glad that people are safe, and hopefully we have that new store open fairly soon. But there was a notice if people showed up that it's permanently closed. Now, Apple is apparently launching a new colored iPhone for the spring. According to Mac Hatakara, a blog in Japan, Apple is planning to hold a news brief this coming week and show off a new yellow iPhone. Now, something I would love to see is updated Pro iPhones like they did before with maybe a new red color. I know that's rumored for the iPhone 15, but so far there's no information about the Pros being updated, just the regular ones. But we haven't had a yellow iPhone since iPhone 11, and so it's a nice spring color. Maybe we'll get some new cases and different things from Apple as well. Now, if you're someone who's using your Apple Watch to dive, or maybe you ski with it or do some extreme sports, and you want to make sure that the overall sealing of it is not compromised, Apple is now allowing you to actually have this tested. So there's a new support document that says get a depth and water seal test for your Apple Watch Ultra. So it's something they just updated here, and they'll give you a visual inspection and then also test it to see if it needs to be replaced. So you can request a depth and water seal test either in the support app or from their website. So you have that option now if you want to do that. So if you're someone that's taking this diving, you want to make sure it's good enough, it's not going to fail, make sure that you have that tested if you can. One other feature I wanted to mention is if you're using Windows, iMessage is coming to Windows. If you're a Windows 11 insider and you're getting the beta updates, you may already have it. I checked on my computer and it's not quite there yet. So this is directly from Windows and then allows you to pair your phone. So just like you can pair an Android phone and use messages with it, you'll be able to use the Phone Link app and pair your iPhone. It's an option here. You tap on that and then link your iPhone. You won't be able to use group messages, and you also won't be able to drag and drop photos and video, but you'll be able to text back and forth, and it won't give you the history as well. So maybe this is a move toward a direction where we have iMessage everywhere, but at least they'll have this option. It's something I think will be appreciated by a lot of people that use Windows, since that's the majority around the world. They'll have the option, hopefully, to be able to use messages, and it will show up just like this in the website. And I'll link that in the description if you want to check it out. So far, it's grayed out. I can't enable it on mine, but they're rolling it out slowly. And if you'd like a video of that, let me know in the comments below. Now, also something Apple released along with Beta 2, a couple days later, they actually released Apple Studio Display, the Mac Studio Display 16.4 Beta 2 firmware. We don't really know what's in it, but they do keep releasing that. As far as upcoming releases, well, iOS 16.4 Beta 3 could be as soon as this coming week. And the reason I say that is this past week, we got the new security response patch 16.4. I showed you that. If we go into settings, I actually did a video on that explaining what was in it, and it's really not a whole lot in it. If we go to software update, you'll see 16.4a, that's the security patch. And if we go into about and then tap on the build number, you can see it here, 16.4a, the build number 20E7752230F. This is actually just for testing. However, in documentation for this, apparently there's some messaging saying that they're going to release another one next week. So that's something we could see coming up very soon. And that's something only available to some people, but for whatever reason, this is only showing up for developers and not public beta testers. That makes sense, as it's not something you would test as public beta testers, but it's only showing for developers. But either way, there's nothing in it. There's no security updates. It's more for testing if you have a large network with a bunch of devices that you need to push updates to. So that hopefully will be something that's coming this week with iOS 16.4 Beta 3. We could have it this week. As far as a final release, maybe the end of the month, we could have the release candidate, so iOS 16.4 RC or release candidate, and then a final release either at the end of March or early April. That's what I would expect, and then Apple will move on to iOS 16.5 Beta 1. We've seen references in the code in different websites, such as Mac Rumors, showing 16.5. Also, there is no mention so far of iOS 16.3.2, so maybe we're only going to get 16.4, 16.5, and honestly, with those security updates, the 0.1 updates could go away altogether if they're just for security, so we could just have the security response updates, but so far we haven't seen those released to the public. As far as iOS 17, well, hopefully we get those icon redesigns. There's not a whole lot of information leaking about it, but we should see it in the first week of June typically. Not with just iOS 17, but macOS 14, watchOS 10, and all the other updates, and maybe the augmented reality with Reality OS. So maybe we'll see more of that with WWDC 2023 in June. But that's what I'm looking forward to. I would love a stability update and maybe some icon changes for consistency across Mac and iPhone and iPad and Apple Watch. As far as the overall experience of iOS 16.4 Beta 2, it's moving in the right direction, I think. So far, it's quite stable, working well. There are still some bugs here and there, but for me, there has been zero slowdowns. So whether that's just swiping, scrolling through something, maybe going into podcasts, scrolling through that, everything seems to be nice and fast for me. The swipe home bug is gone. It was gone with Beta 1 for me, so if I swipe home while music is playing, it's nice and smooth. I really haven't had any issues with that compared to what I had previously. I did see a couple people mention that as an issue, but so far I haven't experienced it, and I had it a lot in 16.3.1 and earlier. The Bluetooth overall has improved a bit, but it's not quite what it was before. So Bluetooth connecting to my vehicle, using it for music, is better than it was before, but not 100%. And some people are mentioning it's disconnecting from their AirPods. So if we bring in the AirPods, these are AirPods 3, so let's see how quickly they connect. Sometimes it's fast, sometimes it's a little bit slower with all these devices around, but they seem to not be disconnecting as easily. And there we go. It took just a moment. They're connected, and that's usually not a problem for me. They'll switch fine. I haven't really had an issue, but in general, they seem to be quite good. As far as Safari, well, it's been a little bit problematic, mostly because of private relay. Something has changed, and if you turn that off, it tends to fix it. For me, it was a bit of a pain using Safari. I had to switch to Chrome, and that worked. I turned off private relay, went back to Safari, and it seemed to work just fine. So it's definitely a private relay issue on some networks. If you're having that issue, let me know in the comments below. And of course, if you're having any issues, be sure to report it in the feedback app. As Apple uses that, they may contact you back and ask for more information. But they seem to be fixing things and hopefully getting ready for iOS 17. Now, as far as battery life, it's been okay to the point where it's getting me through a day, but it still is getting a little bit lower than it was before. If we go into settings, we go down to battery health and charging. I'm at 98%, and that's what I've been at for a while. You can see the overall cycles here from Coconut Battery if you've been following along with that. So that gives you an idea of what I'm using it with or how often I'm recharging it. And I have clean energy charging turned off, as it's supposed to use clean energy nearby. I actually have solar on my house, so it's mostly clean anyway. But either way, if you want to enable that, some people said disabling that saves battery. I haven't noticed any difference whatsoever. Whether it's turned on or off, it really doesn't seem to make much of a difference for me. As far as battery life, if we go over the last 10 days, you'll see yesterday wasn't great, and I'm still getting a lot of screen idle time. So 2 hours and 56 minutes of screen active time, 10 hours and 2 minutes of screen idle time. The day before, again, 2 hours and 41 minutes, and I'm using about 60% of my battery or a little bit more. So it hasn't been great overall. The day before, I guess Tuesday, that would have been on beta 1, or just before, that day was okay, 5 hours and 42 minutes using about 75%. So it's gotten a little bit worse with overall usage, a lot of screen idle time for some reason. As far as the heat of the device, it's been nice and cool. Many people have actually commented to that point. So it's nice and cool here. I'll take a look with the thermal camera since we haven't done that for a few weeks. As I move the thermal camera over the hottest area, we have about 89.8 degrees, so just under 89 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's staying nice and cool. It's not really getting that hot, although I wouldn't be too concerned about that as it does manage its overall internal temperature and charging and things like that. But if you're wondering if you should install iOS 16.4 Beta 2, well, if you're wondering if you're on Beta 1, definitely install it. If you're on 16.3.1 trying to solve an issue, I often tell people hold off until the final version is out, or at least the release candidate. Then most of the bugs are worked out. I never recommend upgrading if you're trying to solve a bug because betas will always have bugs. But if you have an extra device lying around, you're signed up for the beta program, or you're a developer, then for sure try it out. But I don't know that I'd recommend it on your main device. Now let's take a look at your comments. Zomboy said, "Hi Aaron, I'm using iOS 16.4 Beta 2 on my iPhone SE 2nd Gen, and I haven't noticed much differences between this update, Beta 1, and 16.3.1. Maybe slight stability improvements, but that's about it. I wonder when the custom accessibility feature will arrive. Hopefully that will be fairly soon. We saw that in code earlier on, I think in 16.3, but we haven't seen it yet, so maybe Apple's leaving it for iOS 17. Paris Kumar, hopefully I'm saying that properly, said iPhone XS Max with iOS 16.4 Beta 2, and it's going good so far. Paul, the CEO, said, I'm on iOS 16.4 Beta 2 on my iPhone SE 2nd Gen, and it works pretty well. Battery life is good, but the one bug I'm having right now is Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi issue from iOS 16.3 still carried on until the first beta of 16.4. In that beta, I didn't have any problems. Now I'm having Wi-Fi issues again. With the latest beta, it's honestly really annoying bug since I don't have 5G support on my phone, and I wish I wouldn't keep having this issue. The Shortcuts app is still broken for me, freezing after 30 seconds of use. It does seem to be more resource intensive this time around for some reason, so there's definitely some odd things going on there. So that's everything with iOS 16.4 Beta 2. It looks like it's getting much better, things are improving, and stability has improved overall. Again, I'm looking forward to iOS 17. Hopefully we get some new icons that aren't flat, but let me know what you want the most in iOS 17 in the comments below. If you'd like to get your hands on this wallpaper, of course, I'll link it in the description as I always do. And if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time. If you've made it this far to the end of the video, I really appreciate it, and I'm thinking of bringing music back for those that like the music, but I always like to hear who gets to the end of the video, and if you have any other suggestions for these videos, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. As always, I really appreciate you watching.